There are a lot of different genres of video games that I love, but one of the top will always be CRPGs. Arcanum, Disco Elysium, Fallout 1 and 2, the Baldur's Gate trilogy, and Pillars of Eternity are some of my very favorite games ever. For whatever reason, fall always puts me in the mood to play another, and this year I gave a new one a shot. Colony Ship, a post-Earth role-playing game. I figured I'd take a few minutes and talk to you about my spoiler-free thoughts on the game. First things first, if you don't want to watch the whole video, I would recommend the game to anyone who loves world building and exploration in any CRPG. The combat is okay, though definitely not thrilling. Many people online have written about the difficulty of it, and I completely understand where they're coming from, but I don't think it's as bad as it's often made out to be. Choice is also a plus, if that's something that's important to you, though sometimes those choices only seem to marginally affect your character. For example, someone saying hi hours later and no dialogue options at all. Characters and writing, other than the world building and lore, is, in my opinion, the game's greatest weakness. It's not terrible, but it's not particularly satisfying. Without going into further detail, if that summary sounds good to you, I definitely say I mostly enjoyed my time playing Colony Ship. If you'd like to learn a bit more, please listen on. Arguably, the greatest strength of the game is its world building. I absolutely love the concept and setting behind the game, and it immediately drew me in. You are an inhabitant of a spaceship during an interstellar trip from Earth to a new planet. Your ship left well over 100 years ago, but still has not reached your final destination. Your forefathers and foremothers were religious and looking for a place to call their very own. Your progenitors are the Pilgrims, except 1,000 years later. Time went on, decades went by, and the original goals of the original mission have become a dream. And somewhere deep in the past, a mutiny arose trying to overthrow the supposed tyrannical rule of the spaceship. This revolt badly damaged the ship, and 100 years later, it still limps towards its supposed destination, but with a dramatic drop in the quality of life of its residents. I think all of this is a very compelling setting and seems to be quite unique. Strengthening the setting of the story is the exploration you're able to do on the ship, finding lost tomes and data pads that fill in blanks from the past. There aren't nameless thugs, robots, and animals to fight. They're all there for a reason, whether they are an outlaw or an experiment gone wrong. You are free to custom make a character as you see fit as well, as with most other CRPGs. I didn't quite understand the significance of many of the attributes and skills during my first playthrough, though, when I was creating my character, but if I ever go back to the game, I'll know that skill checks are very, very important. I assumed that they were in the first place, but they affect dramatically more than I expected. I also liked that completing a skill check gave you experience in that specific skill check, but not your overall experience. The game tends to lean into the concept that you simply can't do everything. Sometimes you will just have to come back later in the game to do something like unlock a door or hack a computer. And if you don't have feats in combat, you're probably gonna get wiped out. Speaking of combat, many negative reviews that I've seen have centered around its supposed difficulty. I played on Underdog difficulty, which is the original default way to play the game. Although the combat was often difficult, I think most battles were winnable from the jump. If you have tools like stasis grenades or poison gas, you will need to use them if you are not a team of wrecking balls. I didn't particularly care for most of the loot that I would end up getting after a battle, which I thought was a weakness of the game, but that's just my personal opinion. Potentially, if I had a different build of a character, I might have appreciated the loot more. Long story short, I didn't find the combat as bad as many others seemed to. Another positive part of the game were implants. Depending on your constitution, you could have a different amount of implants installed, and those implants could also be upgraded by finding additional computer chips. Just make sure that you have someone who has high biotech, or you won't be able to remove and repair most implants. Overall, my experience with Colony Ship was a positive one. That said, I felt that the weakest aspect of the game was the script itself, not including the setting and lore. My biggest issue with the writing mainly stems from the lackluster conclusion to stories that often feel rushed, or characters that are rather one-dimensional. That's not to say that there were not moments that didn't surprise me or I didn't enjoy, but there were too many, "Oh, that's it?" ends to quests. Characters very rarely surprise you in their actions, and some of your persuasion choices don't seem all that convincing, but if you have the skill, they'll work anyway. Then again, I absolutely give the game points for making a quick-talking communicator a completely viable build. You can also talk to your companions, but it's almost always the same basic question or two. They will chime in during quests with their opinions, but there's no extended characterization from my experience. They may have one thing that they'd like you to look into, maybe a revenge mission, but it's something that takes about 5 to 10 real-world minutes. You never get a sense that there's a real driving force behind why they stay with you throughout this journey. Instead, to me at least, they stay with you because you're the main character, and that's what companions do in video games. All told, though, I did enjoy most of my time with Colony Ship, a post-Earth role-playing game. It's a decently ambitious game, but not one that will blow you away. But does a game always have to? Sometimes a good game is exactly that. It's just good. And for all of its foibles, that's why I would recommend Colony Ship.